Greetings one and all, and welcome to the Dream Home Q&A. It wasn't going to be the Dream Home Q&A. It was in fact going to be a different video, but upon request from the lovely Miss Fina, it is a dream home instead. Disclaimer, this is not actually my ultimate dream home in real life. My number one dream home would probably be a tiny house. Number two would be a sprawling Victorian. But for the sake of the Sims world, I made it a Victorian with a twist. So it is a house that I love. I enjoyed building it and making it work. But I don't know that it had everything I would want in a real world home. But for the Sims purposes, my Simstress and her fictitious husband in the game got married and moved into this house. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. That's all I'm going to say for now. I may chime in later with a little extra info, but for now, just enjoy the video. And I'm going to start in on our fabulous questions. Last time we had a lot of single questions from various followers, but this time we have a series of questions from a handful of the followers. I'm sure not everybody wanted a Q&A, but for those of you who did, here it is. And thank you for listening. To begin with, our number one question is from Miss Vina herself. She says, if you could have dinner with one of your time traveler people, who would you pick? And what would you order to eat and drink? Okay, so I just went extravagant on this one, and it may be a boring answer for whoever's listening, but it's an honest answer. So in the 1920s time traveler, I would pick Maurice Ravel. I'm a classically trained musician, and I absolutely love Ravel. I also love Debussy. He was not in the series, though. So I would have dinner with Ravel. We would definitely have to visit his quirky little house in France first, and then we would go to a French bistro where we could be seated near Claude Debussy and chat and drink absinthe, if, we're in France. And that would be our aperitif. And then we would order a salade niçoise, followed by either confit de canard or boeuf bourguignon. No, I'm not a snob. Then we would finish with a light soufflé or a fruit tart and a small coffee. That would be my favorite. Of the people that were there, I did think long and hard about Agatha Christie, but she doesn't like Poirot, and I would want to talk about him endlessly, so I decided against it. Number two, part B part B of Miss Fina's questions. What's your favorite genre of music to listen to and to perform? What was your favorite character you ever played? If you could be any character in any production, but for the rest of your life, what would it be? That's in fact several questions, and I've lumped them all into one, but I also answered it that way, and I tried not to be too verbose, but here it goes. So my passion since childhood was always classical music and opera, and that is what my degree is in, although I did my fair share of musicals and choral singing and soloing. But I kind of took this as the two main genres that I worked in. Since I have a degree in vocal performance and pedagogy, and I've performed in various productions, probably not all of the ones that I wanted to before I left the stage, but you never know, might still happen. My favorite to perform had to be the witch in Sondheim's Into the Woods. If you've only seen the movie and not the original production, what are you doing with your life? Go back, watch the original. So much better. No offense to Meryl Streep, because I love her to death. So so that would be it for a musical, although I do have some runners up, and they're all going to be Sondheim, probably. So as far as opera, my favorite may just be Donna Elvira in Mozart's Don Giovanni. Love that opera so much. I taught myself all the roles in that opera when I was 17 because I was that kind of music dork. And I just love her. She's kind of like a stalker in the opera, and it's a very serious opera, but it's almost comical how she stalks him throughout the opera. So I would probably be Donna Elvira, although I do have a runner-up for that one as well. One character that intrigues me, and of course, these are, again, they're all Sondheim. Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. Love Sweeney Todd. I actually played Joanna a while back, but I think probably now it would be Mrs. Lovett. Also, she has a much bigger part, and it's so much fun. That would be my runner-up, and then Dot in Sunday in the Park with George would be my next runner-up for musicals. Of course, both by Stephen Sondheim. Love him. I would have to choose, I don't know, those were all, those were all things that I love. That I've maybe done or done part of or done the show and done a different role. But I think number one, the ultimate, would have to be Florence in Chess by Bjorn Rice and Ulvaeus of ABBA fame. Love ABBA too. But yeah, Florence, that show. I was actually in that show. They pulled me in at the last minute and I ended up understudying Florence. And I learned that show in one weekend and I ran it. I think we had 24 performances of the crazy thing. It was like such a long run for an off Broadway performance, but it was so memorable in my life. I absolutely cry every time I hear it. Try to ignore the dogs. They're not mine and I have no control of them. So I definitely would be Florence for the rest of my life because yeah, even though it's not Sondheim, that show just captivates me in a way that nothing else ever has. So I bet you saw that coming, Miss Fina. But yeah, those were all really big runners up that I listed ahead of time there. I don't know. Those are all so good. But yeah, Florence. Probably above all, above any other type of production, even my near and dear to my heart opera. I don't know, that's tough, but Florence. Love it. Anyway, moving on. Question 2 with parts is from my dear friend, Basically Bex. The question is, can you explain to us a little bit about some of your other hobbies? I know about some of them and I'm intrigued to know more. This is where I come off sounding all, I don't know, I'm not a braggy person. I am proud of the things I've accomplished, having lived, for centuries, but I don't really like to brag. I did make a short list of things that I do. I'm sure I miss things. I do whatever I have a passion in, I tend to just go for it. I tend to go a little bit, I get overzealous and want to get like certifications and degrees and everything. But I do all things that are art world, and anything that's related to art, anything that's even an extension of art, I dabble in that. I've been a singer my entire life. Of course, that's been my vocation, and I also teach. So that's constantly been a part of my life. But I also paint, I sketch, I do calligraphy. I've done that professionally. I write short stories and poetry, which I've had published a couple of times. I also have a psychology degree, and I love to study, serial killers, writing, body language analysis, all of that stuff is fascinating to me. I love doing writing analysis. If you want me to analyze yours, send it on over. And yeah, that's a side thing. Obviously, don't have any kind of certification in that, but I have been looking at that for a long time because I love it. It's so awesome to me. And the weirdest thing about me is that I began working as a medium when I was a child, and I've had an extensive life in the paranormal world, helping people. Enough about that. Finally, I am obsessed with Woody Allen films. And, films in general, especially foreign films. I love foreign films, and I love a horror film. I'll watch a B movie. I do like some really psychological thrillers and horror films, but any day of the week, I will watch a horror film or a Woody Allen film. I have to be in a quiet place to watch a foreign film and really get into it, though. I can't just watch a foreign film with a bunch of stuff happening. So those are the things I love the most. And probably something I left off of that list was I love to take very long, hot bubble baths and just sit there and just either listen to music or zone out, or I'll actually message friends that I haven't talked to in a while and have a conversation while in the bathtub. That's been a lifelong thing of mine. That's probably really weird now that I've said it out loud. Next part of basically Bex's question. What's your most favorite decade? This one was harder to answer than I thought it would be. My favorite decade is very hard to pinpoint. The obvious answer is the 1920s. That's kind of what my whole channel is based on, is the 1920s. Vintage in general, but I tend to just get to that niche of the 1920s and what was happening in the world then. But I also have a strong passion for other decades that I don't get to explore much, or as much. I love the late 17th and early 18th centuries, as well as the 1910s and 30s and 40s, for different reasons. Just so much wonderful stuff going on then. The clothing then, I definitely collect, especially shoes from all of those decades, literally. And I try to, I guess you can call it history bounding, because I can't quite dress how I would want to without getting a lot of unwanted attention. So I kind of incorporate them into outfits that are more classic styling, so that I can get away with it and still have, you know, whichever piece I'm wearing not stand out and be silly looking, but it's actually an elegant addition. But I can still represent those eras that I love so much. But yeah, and there's also something very warm and comfortable about the 1970s. Not the part that I had in it, because I was around then, but because I was a pretty lonely child, I remember it nostalgically, and I remember it because of its pop culture as an adult. I look back on it and I see things, you know, that are very familiar and were comforting to me in that period of my life, and I see it now through adult eyes, and I find a comfort in that for some strange reason. I'm sure that says something about me as a person. I'm not sure what it means, but it could be positive. It probably is positive, but I do like that era. There was a lot of, I mean, just like any other decade, there was probably a lot of nasty stuff going on, but I enjoyed the aesthetic of it and just the way people wanted to get out and have fun, and the way, you know, the way they shot horror films in the 70s, and the way that horror was like a whole culture in the 70s, and oh my gosh, and then going a little further into the 70s and into the 80s with the Hammer House horror films, just that whole feeling of that, like the grainy film, and I just love it. I love the 70s, but not the way I have a passion for the other decades. That's just a fun, I like to delve into it once in a while and just remember what I can about the 70s myself, and then explore a little bit extra. That was a long-winded answer, and I'm sorry, Bex. But as far as fashion, I do emulate in real life the 1910s through the 1940s. I'm so sorry for completely changing your question. Moving on. The next question. Oh my gosh, the numbering system just got away from me. Shan finds pixels. Hello, my friend. And he asks, what is your favorite thing to do in Sims 4? I love to do vintage build. Surprise! You didn't see that coming, did you, Shan? I love doing strange shapes and somehow making it work. I kind of did that with this Victorian, but yeah. So I like things that are a little bit offbeat, that look like they're not going to become like a nice home. Usually I do residential builds. I have done other builds, but I like to make spaces work when I've done something strange with the shapes that I've built. I like to find a way to make things work in little nooks and crannies, and seeing how to make it realistically appear accurate to the period and still functional. And I just love building and landscaping in general. I do love landscaping. You see a lot of these very big English gardens just exploding with color. I love doing that. I try not to do it in every house, so it doesn't become like the big cliche, like, oh, she did a build, here's another elaborate garden. Ridiculous. No, I don't want to do that, but I do it. This house was for my sim, so of course she would want this garden. So I did it for her. And enough about that. Shan also asks, what do you miss in The Sims 4 from Sims 3? I have talked, probably ad nauseum, depending on who you ask, about how much I love The Sims 3. Obviously, my channel's not based on Sims 3, only because I can do more of what I want with Sims 4 at this point. But I really did love a lot of not the glassy eyes, not the strange hair in Sims 3, but I love the interaction. The interactions that were available on the map of the world, as well as the relationship development. It took time, and it was possible to mess things up, more like real life. I feel like that happened in The Sims 3 and made me more cautious about how I was playing. You couldn't easily get from meeting someone to married in a few minutes the way that you can in Sims 4. So there was just more effort and involvement. You could feel invested in relationships, I feel like. So, yeah, and there's a follow-up question to that, which makes perfect sense. You know me. Shan says, what inspired you to focus on vintage? Well, again, going to try not to be long-winded, but I just love vintage. Okay, so I'm just going to ramble. I began my channel with original ideas and things that I enjoyed, like the Edwardian Manor for Simstress and Alice in Wonderland. When I began to get more serious about my content, I looked at what I had a passion for, and the answer was undoubtedly all things from the past. Houses, decor, clothing, ideals, the way that life had guidelines and objects had purpose and practicality. I try to incorporate vintage items in my personal life, as I've said previously, and I realized that one thing that would get me to ignore the numbers on my YouTube channel would be to do something that was strictly fun for me and hope that others might share in that passion for the past, I guess. That's my biggest reason for doing it. And he also says, I love it from you, referring to the vintage, and I'm curious what makes you excited when you make a new character, what influences you. My answer to that is because many of my characters are real people from history at this point. What fuels me is infusing them with personalities that reflect the real people, making them look as close to real human beings as possible. I always try to give my Sims classic beauty and a bit of glamour because, well, that is what is most attractive to me. Some of that old-time glamour I try to infuse, even Sims that are not real people, people that I've made up. I still try to give them that classic look. And finally, we have a series of questions from Comfy Butterfly. Hello, darling. She says, well, she wants to know, what are my all-time favorite books to read? Hands down, mystery novels. Period. Agatha Christie's are at the top of that list. Love a good mystery novel any day. Just is so soothing to me. And next part of that question series is name one book that you can read over and over again. It never gets old no matter how many times you read it. Apropos of Nothing by Woody Allen. There are so many that I love, but that one, I can pick it up on any page and read it over and over again. It was brilliant, full of amazing details from a time when life was very different. The glamour of New York City is never more present than in Allen's writing. Love New York. I'm from New York. It's where my heart is. And I never pass up a chance to learn his history and know him and his films better. So that's got to be my answer, apropos of Nothing. If you like him, if you're intrigued by him, check it out. Favorite movie? For many years, it was Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. As an adult, that is much harder. It will definitely be one of Woody Allen's. I have a top 10 and a top 5, but I adore all of them. If I was forced to pick one, it might be Crimes and Misdemeanors or Interiors. I love Another Woman, Annie Hall. Oh my gosh, I could go on forever. If I talk any more about these, I'm bound to go film geek on you and begin discussing existential motifs in Woody Allen's work. So I'm going to leave that answer there. And finally, oh yes, there was a disclaimer about the blank walls there. I hope you caught that. She's an artist after all. So snacks that I prefer to nibble on during movies. Thank you, Comfy Butterfly. That is a cool question. Or TV series or Sims creations. Good one. Good one. I will come off pretentious. God, I think I probably already have, and I'm so sorry. I will come off pretentious on this one, but I love having a glass of red wine and some French bread and brie. Either that or like Chinese or Korean takeout while watching. This is like an entire event for me. It's like a religious experience. Really, movies and really good food together. Love that so much. Next part of this, I've lost count of how many parts, and I'm so grateful that you're this interested in me. Thank you, Comfy Butterfly. My next question is favorite Machinima creators. I tend not to watch Machinima very much, but I love anything that Oak Sim Studios puts out. Love him. Shout out to my friend Oak. And Lady Rios. Oh gosh, I love her work. She draws you in. She makes you forget that it's Sims, and it's just so captivating. Love her work. Hi, Lady Rios. Love you. And then, yeah, they both have this eye-catching style. I think those would be my top 2. I don't know that I would have anybody else at this point. that I've watched. I mean, I've seen other machinimas, but I haven't seen enough of them to really critique them or say yes or no. There's something I love or don't love about them. There's a lot of really good, talented people out there creating machinima. But these two, they're just engaging and fun and just nice to relax and watch. When you get a chance, when they put out something new, you know they've put a lot of work into it. And the final question is, do you read Sim stories? And your favorite writer? I wish I could answer this because it is the last question, but I don't really read Sim stories, although I think they would be fun to look into. My life is just such a ridiculous schedule mess. There's just constantly something diverting attention, and I have to catch just the rare half hour to do things like this voiceover. So I'm sorry I don't read those, but I may look into them now that you brought them up. Thank you all for your questions. I am so grateful to have such wonderful friends that are actually interested in the person behind the videos, and in the videos. Obviously, that's why I make them. I want to share, you know, my passion and my art, basically. And I love that there's just this little group that is always there for me and always supporting me. And I've got other names floating around in my head, and I don't want to say them for fear that I'll forget somebody. But if you watch my videos regularly and you comment regularly and you're there supporting me, I love you to death. It makes me feel so good to know that I'm doing something that's entertaining or educational, even with the documentaries. And I do hope that you'll continue to watch. I'm going to be putting out my build of the 1930s time traveler set. Big surprise, big reveal with that one. That's going to be coming out a week after this video. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. And we're almost through the whole house. I talked so much, and I'm sorry. I am a talker. I'm not going to deny it. But thank you again. And if what I said today prompts any more questions, slide into my DMs. I'm always happy to chat. And tell me if anything I said struck a chord and you want to tell me about yourself. I love to listen. So more weird facts about me. I was also a life coach once. So I do love to listen to people and give them my ear and my time when I have it. Whenever I have it, I will give it to my friends. I'm done talking. Enjoy the rest of the build. I hope you liked all the quirky things I fit into this house. I wanted her to be able to do all the things that the Simstress would love. And she's even trying her hand at being a decorator now and a designer. I know, we won't talk about the new Dream Home Decorator pack in this video. For another day, friends. Until next time, my lovelies. Oh, I'm going to let you see this top floor because it makes a lot of sense based on what I just said in all my questions here. The top floor is a private movie screening room, complete with a little discussion lounge off to the side in the tower. So yeah, it fits perfectly. I would love to have a little room. Okay, come back upstairs. I would love to have a little room that was just for like a quiet, dark room just for watching movies. Oh my gosh. So wonderful. So until next time, I hope that you are happy, safe, and oh so healthy, and that you have a beautiful day.
Bye.